You know, how should I put it? There is something a little bit weird, but even more so surprising about the Honor 6X. Because believe it or not, I've used this phone for over 1 week until I've actually realized that this is the official successor to the Honor 5X. What makes that so surprising? Simply the fact that it is nothing like the Honor 5X, where that phone was, in my opinion, quite the bulky, decent, mediocre $200 phone. The successor here, for just a little bit more, is so much more elegant, way more compact, with way higher qualities in general, that I at first didn't even see any resemblance at all, which shocked me even more so once I've noticed that. And that thing also continues with the way nicer design here. It looks a little bit generic these days. I've seen quite a lot of phones that look like it, but still, what I like a lot are the curves everywhere, with the curved back here, the 2.5D glass, and everywhere else it is just rounded off very nicely, which makes it so comfortable and really nicely to hold in the hand. It is a 5.5 incher, but it's still, due to being quite compact, I have to say one-hand usability was actually quite good. And one thing that is also nice to see and will make a lot of people happy, the border around the display is quite small. Since it is aluminum, it is after all a little bit slippery, and in terms of build quality I have to say it's not quite what it appears at first, because I thought it was super high quality build, but when I did my bend and a little bit of creaking test, I've noticed that you can make it creak a little bit, especially here in the middle. Not a big issue, and it still feels great overall, but if you maybe hold it in your hand a little bit more roughly, you will notice that. Fingerprint reader, absolutely solid. Not the very fastest one, but very reliable and absolutely no problem at all. Here we have the LED, the dual camera. On the top we have the microphone, headphone jack, SD card and SIM card tray on the left side. A little bit of a different color here for some reason. Speaker on the right side. On the bottom here in the middle we have the micro USB. Would have been nice if this would have been already USB Type-C, but it isn't. And fake speaker holes along with a microphone. On the right side we can see here the really nicely placed power button. A little bit higher than we usually see it on Huawei and on devices, but still absolutely nice to reach. Same as for the volume rocker. A little bit more click would have been nice, but the tactile feedback is absolutely great. We have a notification LED, and we have, as you can see here, software buttons and no capacitive ones. So overall, not the very best build quality, but still very good, and a great in-hand feel, especially for this price range and this size. Now when it comes to the display, we have a 5.5 inch IPS 1080p display and a really lovely one. And one thing that I still like a lot is that we have the color temperature control. What I would have maybe wished by now to see is maybe a way to maybe calibrate the saturation, but one thing that I've always praised Huawei for is their amazing calibration. That's why it's not a deal breaker at all, because we have really nice colors, nice, vivid, and really great, but still very natural. Viewing angles are good to maybe very good, not the very best ones, especially on gaming. I've noticed that a little bit more, but colors are still absolutely enjoyable. The white point is just right, and you can adjust it, of course, with black levels being very good and with the normal amount of IPS glow. Maximum brightness was absolutely fine, actually very good, maybe not quite great. So let's see what the speaker can offer. It may not be the very best speaker and it is downfiring, but I had no problem. I didn't block it at all, not even gaming. And it sounds absolutely good. Maximum volume was, I would say, very good. It was usually loud enough, and the overall sound was a little bit warm. It could have been even a little bit richer, but absolutely satisfying. Absolutely no problems, and should be pleasing for everyone. Same. Not the case here for the headphone jack, and I will complain about on pretty much every phone also in 2017, because it is just about average. I want to see more here, but it's not worse than on any other one. Now let's kill all the apps so we can check the performance. And here I want to start off with launching a few apps just so we can see how quickly that works. And you can maybe already notice it if you have seen some of my recent reviews, then it is definitely above a mid-range level and actually quite close to a flagship level already, which is something definitely nice to see. So definitely above mid-range level, really nice to see. And especially something like the scrolling in the browser is super buttery smooth. There is no really perceivable difference to a flagship. The only thing that you will notice if you have an AMOLED display, scrolling just looks nicer, but on the IPS display still looks nice. One thing that I will complain though a little bit about, that is just the fact that Huawei tweaks the scrolling, which is something that I don't like so much. I just want the normal scrolling. This just feels a little bit weird, and you have to get used to that. And I think it actually even introduces a little bit more lag than it would otherwise. It is smooth and it is nice, but it scrolls just a little bit different, and sometimes, not really often and not really visible all that much, but still enough to be mentioned that it stutters and lags just a little bit sometimes. But as you can see, quite snappy, especially with 3 GB of RAM. It works absolutely nice. The 4 GB version should be even better here, but no complaints here. Overall, a very good, actually quite close to a flagship, but still not quite there. Performance. Gaming performance is actually maybe even better because it is at least on a Snapdragon 650, maybe 652, and between 810. Absolutely solid, actually way above average frame rates, pretty much no frame drops at all, and not even the temperature was a problem at all because it got moderately warm, absolutely no throttling or anything like that. Very pleasing. I could play all my games really nicely and my Bluetooth controller worked without any problems, and therefore it is definitely a highly capable machine, not just because in terms of performance, but also in terms of battery, which is the next thing that I'm going to talk about. Because full charge takes about 2 hours and 5. Since the battery is a little bit bigger, that is still absolutely fine. And maybe with a different charger it works out even better. I used the one that came in the box. 12% for an hour of YouTube is, I would say, maybe a little bit above average, not great. But I would still say that the overall battery life is definitely great plus. Because in mixed use I got about 7 hours on one day, 8 on Wi-Fi and 6 in mixed use. On mobile data only, and over the course of the second day about 1 hour less, which is definitely way above that and therefore also capable for long gaming sessions, which is nice to see. So the one little bit of a complaint that I have right now here is that this phone is getting released, at least worldwide, with 6.0 and not already Nougat. And that's why I don't really want to spend too much time on the software, because it will be obsolete quite early, because I expect in at least 2 or 3 months to get Nougat. As you can already see, I use a different theme and I use a different launcher, because the standard one just comes without the app tray, which is something that I don't like. With Nougat we will get that as well. In the advanced settings, of course, we still have the normal options, and you can pretty much see this on any other Huawei device. There is not something really special. You can of course rearrange the buttons here, which you won't really see so much. We have the floating dock with a kind of overlay button where you can have controls for that, motion control. And on the fingerprint ID, of course, we can change the notification panel, the networks be better. So there is not really all that much to say that I haven't already shown on other devices. I still like that we have the display calibration options. There is, like, for example, now eye comfort mode. But like I said, I don't really want to spend too much time on it, since this won't be all that long here anymore. I'm pretty sure Nougat should come February, March, and then the experience will get even better, because it is absolutely solid here. Still not maybe everyone's first choice, just because it looks a little bit different, but I have no problem using it. Just some minor things maybe, but yeah, that's fine. Now, let's talk about the camera. And if you take a look at the selfies, I gotta say it's definitely at least very good. Maybe not quite great, because sometimes white balance seems a little bit off. Sharpness is not always 100% on point, but it is definitely always very pleasing and looks absolutely okay, quite natural. Like I said, the white balance not always, but this is pretty much the case on every device. Of course, indoors it gets a little bit blurry, but this is absolutely no problem. This is a shot in low light conditions with the flash. Actually looks really sharp and really detailed and very clean, and even without, still not a lot of noise and not really a lot blurrier. This is great. And even with artificial light, results are absolutely nice. And what I liked is that the autofocus works super subtle and very, very precise and really great. Once we go outside, I have to say this is definitely a very good camera, and especially for this price range, because sometimes I have to just remind myself that this is a 250 euro or dollar device, and therefore these shots are actually quite detailed, and I really like that the autofocus works so reliable with a great outcome. Colors look natural, the brightness, exposure and everything else looks really on point, and the overall experience is this time noticeably better than on many other phones, because you pretty much just point, shoot, and you get a quite good result. Most of the cases with a lot of sharpness, details. Great. And even though you can see here we didn't have the best weather conditions, these shots are absolutely top and way above this price level. If it comes to the video, the only thing that I could a little bit complain about is that the video doesn't seem to be particularly sharp. We are also limited to 1080p, which is not a huge issue. As you can see, the transition from bright to a little bit darker is quite smooth, a little bit of artifacting in the sun. But one thing that I really love to see is how subtle and pretty much non-noticeable the autofocus works, but very reliable, because everything, as you can see here, is pretty much always spot on in focus. And I'd never really noticed the transition here. Of course, you will see some shaking here since it's not really stabilized, but of course I was walking roughly, but you will now once again see how subtle and how just there the autofocus is. This is so surprising. It works so reliable and just on point. Absolutely great. And there is not really else that much else that I should mention. This is absolutely top. Like I said, it's only the sharpness that is maybe not the very best one. As always, now it's time for the pros and cons. So let's go through all of them together, just in case I maybe forgot something during the detailed part. Starting off with the good stuff. Here to be called out first is the good build quality, which still after all tweaks just a little bit on heavier, rougher abuse, but therefore it is very compact and we have a reliable and solid fingerprint reader. The display is also very good. I especially really like the great calibration here, and the speaker is solid and loud enough, no complaints here at all. Performance is very good, even though not 100% lag free, so a little bit of optimization is still left to be done. Therefore though, we get great plus battery life, which is great. Software is also very solid by these days, and if you use a nice theme, it shouldn't be a problem for so many people as it usually is. So it's not really the iOS clone as many want to make it believe. Very good camera after all, maybe not quite so much about the video quality, especially the sharpness, but general really nicely done and top value. Now let's talk about the stuff that is not that great, but also as always a little bit more subjective and maybe not always that important. The first thing that has to be called out, it looks a little bit generic, but after all quite beautiful. After all, it creaks a little bit, as I said, especially in the middle. There is no oleophobic coating. This is something unfortunate because it came with, out of the box, a screen protector with quite a big border, and I took that off because I don't like that. And then since there is no oleophobic coating, it will pick up quite a lot of finger oil, which will be seen as smudges and a little bit greasy on the screen, something that is just not all that great. Especially also the display dimming, because if you are someone like me who uses the fixed display brightness, and whenever you enter something that uses the browser engine, the screen will dim depending on how much of a brightness you usually use, quite noticeably. I would say at least 10 to maybe 20%, something that I personally don't like at all. Most people using auto brightness maybe won't even notice, but it's quite a big thing for me. Then we have the average headphone jack quality. I've already talked about it so much about that, no need for that now. Tweaked scrolling is something that I want them to get rid of in the next version, which won't happen, but I still don't like it so much. I wanted to point out subjective thing, something you have to get used to. Then we have some minor stutters and lags, so I said a little bit optimization still has to be done. Could maybe happen with Nougat, we will see. Then it is still, even though released in 2017, at least globally, on Android 6.0. But I guess Nougat should be already around the corner. No Wi-Fi AC, and it is still using micro USB. But in the end, where does this phone stand? I have to say, for 250 euros, I think this is pretty much the one phone to go for, because earlier last year, in 2016, I was recommending the Huawei P9 Lite like crazy. And even though this didn't quite manage to capture my feelings as much as that phone did, because it was so close to the P9, this is still super reliable, and after all is generally better because the performance overall is better, the battery life is even better, display is also very good, pretty much the same speaker, 5.5 inch, so a little bit bigger but still very compact with a great in-hand feel. Solid software, pretty much the same, and the camera is maybe even slightly better. So overall, for a very similar price, absolutely recommendable, no complaints here at all. If you want a little bit more power user version, just get the 4GB, 64GB storage version, and you should be even covered better. So they definitely did a great job, and I would say it is right now the new best sub-$300 phone, which the P9 Lite had that title for quite a while. So it has changed. It is not perfect. You have seen the negative sides, and especially something that was a little bit upsetting for me was the lack of the oleophobic coating and the screen dimming, which could get rid of, and the little bit of a lag. They could fix some of those stuff, especially the dimming and the lag, which is not a huge deal after all and shouldn't be a problem for most of the people. But if you want to know if this is the phone to get for, if you don't consider to get Chinese phones that are imported, which usually offer even better value in the normal global market, this is pretty much the one to go for. I just have to give it to them. They did a great job here. And this is already it. If you liked the video, thumbs up, subscription, comments down below, and otherwise a nice day. Until next time, bye.